So welcome. Welcome to Open Plans. This is probably one of our last, if not the last event that we'll be able to have in this beautiful space. For those of you who have been here for many years, you've known the many different iterations that this rooftop has had. Sadly, this is going to turn into Tower Capital. Wait, what's the official name of the Tower Capital? This is going to turn into a trading floor, and so we're going to lose this awesome roof deck that's been up here. But we are happy for the generosity of Open Plans that has sponsored and fostered the different iterations of this particular group. So we started off as the NYC Open Government Meetup, and about within a year time frame, we met in this rooftop and decided that we were going to change our name to this thing called the Open-NY Forum, because a lot of, or there was a group of us in this community that were also doing work in Albany, and so we wanted to bridge the gap between New York City and Albany and talk about how we can create a participatory peer-to-peer platform to engage government in New York City and in Albany, and more or less engage our elected officials and government in a participatory and positive space. And now we're on a new phase several years later. We're now BetaNYC, which we'll talk a little bit about in a little bit. But before we continue this evening, once again, I have to thank our gracious hosts, Open Plans, and give them the floor for a little bit to talk. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to our hosts, Open Plans, and this is Frank Hibbert.
Hi, I'm Frank from Open Plans. Thank you, Noel, for your kind words. This is very exciting for me personally and Open Plans in general. We have a great pleasure of having employed 10% of the graduating class of Code for America Fellows in 2011. So we have 2 developers working for us who are in that first year of the fellowship, Aaron Ogle and Junbei Po. So we've been enthusiasts for Code for America as it was getting started during that first year, in the second year, now in the third year. We build open source civic technology. We are thrilled to have Code for America as a peer and a big brother in the space to look up to. So welcome, enjoy the space tonight, and enjoy hearing about Code for America. Thanks.
Thank you. Does that work? Yeah, great. Okay, so we're called BetaNYC now because there's a very interesting turn of events that have happened that is a little bit confusing, which you may have noticed on the discussion list for those of you who have been members for quite a while. So in 2009, a number of us, or there were a few of us that were working actually in the New York State Senate. And around that time period, we had rebranded this meetup to be Open-NY. In 2010, we realized that there was a really unique opportunity to engage the elected officials up in Albany around an open government platform. And we decided it would be a really good idea to tease them with the idea of calling it Open-NY. And so we didn't think that we would be as successful as we are, or maybe we thought that we would be more successful earlier on. And we wrote this policy proposal that we gave to all the gubernatorial candidates at the time period about creating an open New York and how you can create a statewide platform for open data, participation, transparency, accountability. And lo and behold, one of the candidates at the time period said, let me take it, I will run with it, and I will implement it. And thank goodness he got elected. And in his policy proposals, he talked about creating an Open-NY and an Open New York. And just this year, in January, the current governor, Governor Cuomo, launched the OpenNY initiative. And it's really great. This is an opportunity to really affect change for all of New York. The way that New York's infrastructure is based is that a lot of municipalities get municipal services from the state. It's called a shared services agreement, where smaller municipalities who don't have the scale and the depth and the breadth that New York has, or some of the other larger cities in New York State, they essentially contract with the state to get government services. So they get their Excel, they get Word, they get PowerPoint, they get their antivirus software, they get their email, their web hosting, they get consulting services essentially from the state, and they pay for that. In addition, there are certain agreements that they sign to saying that they would provide data to the state, and most of the funding that happens at a state level means that municipalities have to give information back. So through the shared services agreement, the state launched this OpenNY portal. So if you go to open.ny.gov, you will actually be able to see the state's OpenNY initiative. Now, this caused a small namespace collision with a small little meetup that we were running here in New York called OpenNY Forum. We were happy to enter into that namespace collision because we were affecting change in the state. That presented a unique opportunity for us to kind of rethink what our next leg, our next opportunity would be. And with this year's election, we were presented with an immense opportunity to affect change in this particular city and also help pioneer a new phase of sustainable civic technology communities in municipalities. So we've rebranded ourselves as BetaNYC, as a way that we're going to prototype and we're going to beta the next version of New York City. We're doing that through a series of programs, most notably, which you will hear this evening, will be Ashley talking about our weekly HackNights. We are also engaged in other events like the NYC BigApps, which Veronica will talk about, and supporting the efforts and the endeavors of you who are starting civic startups, as well as engaging in programs like the Code for America Fellowship, which Ezra will be presenting this evening. Now, the relationship between Code for America and this meetup, which is now BetaNYC, is in a supportive capacity. So they fund me as a full-time staffer. They take care of my healthcare, my life insurance, my daily salary, to ensure that you have a full-time organizer to essentially facilitate this community and to make it whatever we want it to be. We're based on 4 principles, and for those of you who have been around in January and attended the meetup that we had at Newark City, which is another great place that has been supporting this community since it started, we're calling these the 4 freedoms. How many of you know of FDR's 4 freedoms? Raise your hand. Great. So FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of America's presidents, for those of you who don't know who FDR is, in the lead up to the Second World War, at his State of the Union address in 1941, outlined 4 universal freedoms. They're freedom of speech and the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, freedom from want, and the freedom from fear. And these universal human freedoms became the foundation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as the foundation of the UN Charter, the United Nations Charter. We've updated them for the 21st century, looking at this kind of our global identity, or our global participation, to be these 4 freedoms: the freedom to connect, the freedom to educate, the freedom to collaborate, and the freedom to innovate. And so these are the 4 values that I'm saying we are championing in the 21st century. And these are the values that BetaNYC will be incorporating here into New York City. And we'll try to present programs and opportunities to ensure that these 4 freedoms are things that are carried into our 21st century government. with that being said, I'm going to take questions, and I'd love to answer all of your questions. I know that there have been several questions that have been proposed to the relationship of Code for America's policies on certain types of issues, about surveillance and stuff like that. I will be more than happy to answer them individually or in the group conversation that will happen at the end of this. So with that, I'm going to pass this off to Alex, who is the coordinator for Code for America's Accelerator program. Alex, we can't see you, but we have your first slide up here in front of us. Do you want to go ahead and jump into your presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Hey, folks. Great to say hi to all the awesome OpenGov folks on the East Coast. I really want to just share with you the opportunity represented by our Accelerator program. What it is an opportunity for startups focusing on government technology to receive mentorship from industry leaders and government technologists, operational support, funding in the form of $25K in seed funding, all in the service of helping you grow your business, as well as supporting the Code for America mission through building the ecosystem of civic startups. We really have evolved and built into our thinking that in addition to change agents within the city on the government side and activists like some of you and our Code for America fellows who are disrupting the space within government, we also need to build the field of startup vendors of lean and agile and easy to use technologies that are in line with the values of Code for America and the OpenGov movement. So that's what the Accelerator is. Why it's an opportune moment for our program is because there is huge space for disruption in government IT. This year alone is projected that $140 billion would be spent on both the federal and state and local level. And obviously, as all of you, I believe, are very familiar with, the ability to produce software that's SaaS and cloud is very significant in lowering costs, as well as enabling a lot of our startups to either sell below procurement thresholds, and if not, help them decide on different strategies, whether they're going to pursue strategies that will allow them to get around procurement in a certain way, or help them, advise them in engaging with procurement in different cities and states. There are over 89,000 government entities within the United States alone, and just in terms of the significance, when I point to all the companies that we have supported through the Accelerator, our companies have come from every single corner of the United States, because we need to innovate government wherever government is, and government is everywhere. So it's been really fascinating and wonderful to work with a very diverse span of companies working on really different issues, and I'll get into that quickly in subsequent slides. So now I'll just talk to you really quick about the Accelerator program. There's a lot of points here, but just on the really big basics that you need to know, we had a lot of energy around it, and it blew us away in terms of the interest from the larger ecosystem. 235 applications. There were 7 companies last year, including one from the New York region, Rumblestone, It's a 4-month program with 1-week mentorship blocks, August and November. And you can see stats there around hours of mentorship and government connections, as well as the fact that we highly dedicated to press and investors and media coverage. So that's the program in a nutshell. I'm speeding through this intentionally to make sure we have time for any questions. So the next slide is just an overall overview of the companies. I'm not going to dive super deep into each company, but I just wanted to give you a sense that what we're looking for in our companies is those who are aligned with our values of making lean, agile, and very easy and elegant to use services. They can work on topics from everything like making it easier to access and apply for health and human services, such as Aunt Bertha does, to MindMixer, which creates an online virtual town hall for citizen engagement and feedback on city initiatives. So there's a really widespread diversity of issues that each of our companies work on, as well as their size. MindMixer currently has over 300 city contracts and just closed on a Series B round today. And we're very excited for their success. To our smallest company, Recovers, which has received seed funding and is operating in over 20 municipalities all over the world, even in Australia, helping manage disaster data and disaster preparedness within the community, even before FEMA or any large agency is able to come in and help. I know that was a really shotgun overview of the entire program. On my last slide, I just want to share with you, we're accepting applications now through May 31st. We'd love for you to support yourselves and or your friends and those in your networks to apply, and we really appreciate you spreading the word about our program. We would love a strong showing from civic hackers and startup folks in New York and the East Coast. And yeah, I really appreciate you being part of this community in relation to Code for America and our program-specific startups. So I believe I'm available now to you to answer any questions as much as I can be useful. So let me know if I can help.
So great. Who from the audience has questions, and I'll repeat them to Alex to make sure that he hears them. Is anybody? Okay. Yeah. All right.
Who is Code for America funded by? What's the relationship by that?
So who is Code for America funded by? Who is America funded by? America's funded by you. And then what is the relationship to, what's the exact question on that second one?
Do they take a percentage of equity stake in the company, or?
So who is a Code for America Accelerator program funded by, and do they take a equity stake in the company?
That's a great question. We are currently not taking any equity or rev share in any of the startups that we have funded. I like to think the first class and this second class, we're still in semi-beta of the program, and so we're really invested in just supporting companies and growing this ecosystem without taking any equity currently. That may change in the future. to the first part of your question, in terms of the funders, in the past, the Accelerator has been funded by the Kauffman Foundation out of, oh, I can see all of you now, that's great. It's been funded by the Kauffman Foundation, which supports entrepreneurship around the United States, as well as Google.org and Google for Entrepreneurs. We also have general funders of Code for America, which includes Omidyar Network, and part of a lot of the Knight Foundation, which does a lot around, if you're not familiar, changing the distribution and engagement around citizens connected to media. A lot of their funding to Code for America also supports the Accelerator.
Great. Other questions? Yes?
Of all the tools that are created, is a requirement that you be selling this tool to government? Could it be a tool that supports government or can be used by government, or do you have to be actively trying to build something to sell to government?
Great. Alex, did you hear that question?
I did. It's great. I can hear everyone. So all our current companies from the first class did sell to government. How we define our civic startups is around helping governments deliver services better, providing better citizen engagement, and or building platforms on open government data that allow development of better government-related apps and services. So to the extent that you could have a startup which supports the deliverance of services better, but doesn't necessarily sell to or procure from government, that is a possibility of something that could participate within our program. To give you a quick example, recoverers.org also sells to churches, NGOs, and other community groups that act as central conveners within small towns. In a small town they work in Alaska, there is no centralized government, so they have to sell to I believe it's a tribal council. So there are many different types of institutions that our companies often and do sell to that are not government, but that is definitely our main focus, if that makes sense.
It does, thank you.
Cool. 2 more questions, if we have them. Great. Oh, yeah, okay.
So are the HackNights going to be related to this Accelerator program? As you said, Code for America, Beta New York City is going to be having weekly HackNights. So maybe I'm confused. Is that related to the Accelerator or part of it?
So Code for America has 4 active programs. The Fellowship, which is its longest serving program, the Brigade, the Accelerator, and the Peer Network. So the HackNights fall under the Brigade program, and they are a way to foster civic engagement, civic technology, and civic startups. And so, through open plans, which the event that we've had here for the last 2 months, we've had a number of people who have been working on civic startups, and we would hope that those companies and those individuals who are thinking about those apps think about their business model and hopefully apply to the Accelerator. The Accelerator program is designed to accelerate civic technology startups or civic startups. And so we hope that, and there's a number of different organizations that are in New York City. Code for, Open Plans actually is also an accelerator. They helped spin out a number of different startups that were, or nonprofits that were focused on the civic startup space. They did that here. There's an organization that I work for called Blue Ridge Foundation, which also does a similar engagement. And Code for America's Accelerator is kind of a national program that helps enable the same thing. We hope that over the next year or so that we'll be able to bring better resources to the civic startup space here in New York City, and we're using those civic hack nights as a way to accelerate that. So, yeah, okay. All right, we get more hands coming up here. All right, yes, Rich.
Have you thought about doing demo nights, kind of a la Tech Meetup, but in the civic space?
Yes.
Yes, this beta talks are a mechanism to get those types of demo nights coming forward. You know, we've branched out as we've retooled the kind of our description of what BetaNYC is. One of them is, in complementary to the Hack Night, is a demo night, these beta talks, which we hope to use more along the lines of what the New York City Tech Meetup has done, demos, conversations. We've had a number of these conversations in the past. We just never really did a good branding around them. We have really 3 types of community engagement events. One is the Civic Hack Night. The other one is Gov Geek Drinks, where we just meet up at a bar and have a happy hour. And then the third is this kind of report back conversation, presentation type thing.
Great.
Tom?
No, I was just pointing.
Okay. And so for those of you who have presentations, I know that a few of you who may be in this room, who may not have been in this room, who emailed the organizers or emailed me personally, we do want to see presentations of civic startups. We've done it in the past, we'll do it in the future. We just need to have a little bit better coordination. We're going to try to do one once a month. But of course, it takes a little bit to do all that coordination and organizing and finding the right venue. In the meantime, we're actively supporting NYC BigApps, where there have been a number of different meetups as well as weekend-long hackathons, which Veronica will be talking to you a little bit later about. But that's a great place to kind of get your app in front of thought leaders, get some good feedback, and then think about the future. So do we have any more questions for Alex? Well, can we all thank Alex for providing the beer and this presentation? Well, thanks for suffering through that. I hope that was informative. Next up is Ezra, who's one of 3 Code for America fellows that are here in New York City, who are working on improving our criminal justice system.
Cool. This feels very official. So yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, my name is Ezra Spier, and as Noel gets the slides going on here, I think, you know, before I get started, I sort of want to just give a little bit of an intro to like what Code for America is and like how it's set up before I get straight into the fellowship part. But Code for America is a nonprofit based in San Francisco. You know, I'm relatively new to it. I've been a fellow since the beginning of January, and basically it's a nonprofit. This is the last slide. Could you pull it to the front?
Sorry.
Sorry. I want to go forward, so not backwards. But basically, we work with and around governments to try to help governments become more innovative. You know, in the last few years, you can think about all these different ways that technology has helped our society become more innovative. Whether it's through little startups, whether it's through smartphones, whether it's through all these things that have made our lives easier. When you think of government, I mean, do you think of like super user-friendly, useful, open, transparent technology?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe in New York. But in a lot of places, government really struggles with technology, just as big businesses even struggle with technology, because there's a lot of things that go into building technology that require being fast, making quick decisions, using things like user-centered design processes that government isn't really doing right now. And Code for America is really trying to bring some of the things that have made technology innovative and bring them to government. So the goals are sort of to help government be more transparent and accountable and open. It's to help government become more innovative and sort of build a culture around innovation and technology within government. And we do this in a lot of different ways. You've heard us about the Accelerator program, which is sort of focused on helping startups to form that can actually help government deliver services better. And what I'm going to talk to you about is the fellowship. This is I'm going to sort of do this. This is the 3rd year of the Code for America Fellowship. right now. And basically how it works is it's sort of like a Peace Corps for geeks. We are, this year, 28 fellows, and the way that it works is we split up and work with 9 different city and county governments. So we're all based in San Francisco, where CFA headquarters is. But during the year, we sort of split up and work and really engage on specific problems and issue areas within different municipalities around the country. It's a year-long program starting in January. Ashley, next slide. And the fellows come from a whole lot of different backgrounds. So I'm a software developer, but we have designers, urban planners, policy wonks, data scientists, people that come from all sorts of different backgrounds that are interested in building technology and engaging with government on how technology can be better. So they're a really awesome group of people to be part of. And I'll just sort of put a quick shout out there. If this is the kind of person you see yourself as, someone that's interested in engaging on civic technology, working within government, building applications, a really intense experience where they don't pay you very much, definitely apply. I mean, I can easily say that this is one of the best choices I've ever made. I've met so many amazing people and had so many interesting experiences, and it's only a third of the way through. So if you have any questions about that sort of stuff, find me afterwards, but the URL is up there. One of the great things about being part of this group is people really do have different backgrounds. I mean, we have people who come from places like Google and Apple and Yahoo, who've been doing software development on a large scale for a really long time. We also have people who've never touched software before. And having people who are really engaged on the issues that come from those different backgrounds really makes for a vibrant community and sort of situation where we could do some really cool stuff. Next slide, please. The way that the fellowship works is it starts in January, and it's sort of a year-long project, lasts through November. Since we all come from so many different backgrounds, we all sort of join together at the beginning of the year and do a 1-month training. And it was sort of like this. It was a lot of like sitting in a room looking at a screen. We had some Skype chats with like the CTO of the United States and all kinds of stuff like that, which is pretty crazy. But basically the idea is that we all come from different backgrounds, and how do you work with government? Like, how does government work? How can you affect change? We did things on community organizing, because a lot of cities where Code for America has a fellowship don't already have a really awesome organized volunteer community or civic engagement community. We learned about negotiation, how to actually sort of convince people that your ideas are ones that they should care about, or maybe they already do care about. And we learned about how technology works and how we can be building responsible technology that can last for more than a year within the government. And then we all break up, and we're sort of on like 3 to 4 people teams. We split up and we traveled and spent a month in the cities or counties we were assigned to. And as you saw on the previous slide, these are like very wide range of different kinds of places. So myself and 2 other fellows are here in New York. Other folks are in Akron, Ohio, or in Louisville, Kentucky. And basically the idea is to talk to as many people as they can in the areas that they're sort of focusing on, to learn about what the problems are. And this is really, really unusual for a government kind of program, because most of the time when government, or even when a large company wants to build software, they issue an RFP, and they issue an RFP for issuing the RFP, and you end up spending millions of dollars building software that maybe made sense when you wrote the initial proposal, but things have changed so much since then that it's really hard to know what the original idea was. And we do things a little bit differently. It's a collaborative approach. So we come in, we work in sort of a very collaborative nature with the government, with community organizations to try to identify problems to solve and then work on solving. So after February, we head back to San Francisco, where we live. So I live in San Francisco. And we start building. We start taking all the research we did, distill it into sort of app ideas, and start building out applications. And in the past, this has been sort of a really wide range of applications. A really good example is last year in New Orleans. One of the big problems and big issues that really came up a lot in interviews with community and with government was the issue of blight. In other cities, we call it code enforcement. Basically, the idea is when you look down the street and there's a house that's falling apart, where maybe there are squatters, or maybe there's trash, or maybe it's a fire danger, it really has an impact, maybe a negative impact on the community. And so there's all these enormous community organizations that have sort of rallied around this issue, trying to hold government accountable for taking care of these places. And there already is a process within government for handling. It just happens in 10 different departments, and all their data systems are different. And if you want to know what's happening on your block, you have to call 10 clerks, and you have to know who those people are, right? So the fellows went in, and they realized they could sort of take these databases, start to bring them together. They built a website, you can go to it right now, called Light Status, that actually shows to the public what's happening on the block. You can look on a map, and it goes more than just sort of sharing the information, it actually explains it. So if you want to know what's happening on your block, you see the same information that the city has. And this is the kind of thing that, when the fellows first went in, there was a lot of resistance to, people coming in with these silly track jackets and, telling people they're going to build technology to help them, to actually building a tool that the community can use and is really creating productive conversations and helping community engagement be fostered in New Orleans. So that's what we're trying to do here as well. Anyway, we spend the rest of the year building applications, testing them, rolling them out, and by the end of the year, our hope is that we have handed it fully off to the city government. So we're working in New York City this year. I am unfortunately today representing the 3 people on my team. I'm there on the right. We've got CJ, who's a software developer who's originally from Allentown. Donalisa, who's an urban planner from Hawaii that spent the last 8 years in New York City, and myself, I'm from Portland, Oregon. And also a software developer, project manager, a little bit of everything kind of person. Next, please. And it's been amazing to work in New York City. Like I said, we spent all of February here, and you can't really see it on the slide, but because of sort of the Open NY Forum and BetaNYC, there's 800 members of this community that you guys represent today, which is just amazing. I think it's the largest civic tech group, at least in the country, if not the world. And what that means is we're coming into this area that's already so rich with ideas and people. It's just been a pleasure to get to know a lot of you, and I hope if you'd like to talk more that we talk after this event. There's also been some amazing progressive legislation and government work happening around the idea of open data, making government more transparent. And last year, a law called Local Law 11 was passed, which means that by 2018, the New York City government is going to make all of its data open. And this is really, really exciting, and it's going to open up opportunities for all of us in this room to use this data for ourselves and to strengthen the community. You can get a lot of this data already on the New York City Open Data Portal. And I would love to see this being used even more than it is right now. There's also just such an amazing tech community there. You went to the New York Tech Meetup, and there's just all these really cool applications. But even in the civic space, you have open plans and DataKind and all these people that are doing really awesome work all throughout the ecosystem. So, next slide, please. So let me tell you just briefly a little bit about our project and what we're working on, and then I'll sort of toss this back. We're working on a criminal justice project, and it sort of came to us through a collaboration between the New York City Mayor's Office of the Criminal Justice Coordinator and the Laura and Arnold Foundation. And the Arnold Foundation is really interesting. I hadn't really heard of them before I started this project. They're based in Houston. They have an office here in Midtown. But they focus a lot of their energy on how to improve the criminal justice system. How can we use data to make sure that people are treated fairly throughout the process? And they focus particularly on what they call the front end of the criminal justice system. That's the time between when someone's arrested and when they're sentenced. So there's a lot of organizations that are doing a lot of work on prisons and reentry. We're actually focusing a little bit less on that, because the statistics and the studies are starting to show that even going to jail at all, maybe even for just a few days, might result in somebody losing their job or having other really serious impacts on their family and on their life that can increase the risk, increase the chances of them having more trouble with the criminal justice system in the future. And so our charge this year is to use data, help the city use data in the front end of the criminal justice system to make it more efficient and more fair. And I really want to stress that efficient and fair, the fair part. There's a lot of attention in the city. You read the New York Times yesterday. There's a lot of attention in the city about how data can show sort of issues with the system, and we're really working with people who are trying to collaborate on making it better. There's a lot of things in the news that maybe you or I might individually disagree with, but we're trying to work with people who are trying to make it better. And I really want to reassure you that this is not like a Big Brother kind of thing. We're actually not really focusing on policing so much as we are what happens once someone's arrested. And how can we help them get the help they need as fast as possible, or get taken care of as fast as possible. So, next slide. One of the really crazy things about working in criminal justice, and I don't have a background in criminal justice, I'm a software developer, is how crazy complicated it is. Actually, hit the next slide real quick. and then go back. This thing on the left here is a flow chart that just shows what has to happen in New York State between the time someone's arrested and someone sees a judge for the first time. That has to happen within 24 hours, and there's just like intricate ballet, if I can use like a word like that, between all of these different actors that have to get a person and a lawyer and a district attorney in front of a judge. The crazy thing, even crazier thing, is all these organizations are run by different agencies. So like the city controls the police and the Department of Corrections, so that's important. Then the county, each county, each borough has its own independently elected district attorney. Meanwhile, the state controls the courts, and they do all the criminal history record keeping. And then there's all these nonprofits that are contracted with all these different organizations that do indigent defense services, so that's like legal aid, public defenders, pretrial services, and there's also a lot of focus in New York City on jail alternatives. So rather than, for example, being sent to jail for a drug charge, maybe being sent to a drug treatment program. And so there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and there's a lot of work that has to be done. And basically, our job as fellows has been to dive straight into the middle of this and to see how it all works and where the data is flowing and all that sort of stuff. It's been a complicated process, but we've learned a lot. Can you hit me to the next actual slide? Thanks. So what we've done is, and by the way, there's already some really interesting data coming out of the mayor's office on criminal justice. The Criminal Justice Indicator Report was released in January for the first time ever. It has a lot of information about how long things take and some key metrics that the city's actually using to evaluate the system. So, I mean, it's totally public, and I would highly recommend anybody interested in this topic to take a look. We've been trying to talk to a lot of people, and we've been talking to governmental actors in the system, we've been talking to non-governmental actors in the system, we've been trying to talk to advocacy organizations. We need to talk to more people. We're doing the best we can to be as really inclusive as we possibly can. We've also been diving straight into the IT infrastructure that makes all this stuff happen. There's actually some really impressive things that the city's done to try to streamline the process, but there can be more done. We've learned a lot about the data that's being shared between different agencies and how it's working and how it could be working a little bit better. And where we are right now is we're taking all these learnings we have and we're starting to build some simple applications on top of it, using various infrastructure to sort of bring the right data to the right people, to start talking about how can we make some of this data a little bit more open within the system. It's hard to do. Criminal justice is really sensitive. There's a lot of privacy implications. But we're trying to do things that are really fair to people, that are really helpful, that are going to help the system be more efficient and more fair. And that's really sort of what's guiding all of the work we're doing throughout the process. How can you help? We're always looking for more contacts within the criminal justice system, especially with advocacy organizations and attorneys. And if you know anybody you think would like to talk to us about this kind of work, drop us a line, NYC@codeforamerica.org, or me directly, Ezra @codeforamerica.org. We're also really interested in this idea that, you know, criminal justice data is really sensitive. I mean, there's a lot of harm that can come to people if we were to say, open up all the information ever. But it's also sort of part of the public record. And there's this interesting and really challenging tension between what is public and what is fair. And if you have any ideas or references or backgrounds maybe in other industries, like healthcare, or things like that, that would help us sort of think through and advocate for things that do make sense, I'd really appreciate, you know, any thoughts you have on that. So maybe find me afterward. Next. So thanks. That's really all I have to say. Code for America Fellowship is awesome. If you're into any of this stuff, hit me up and apply for the program. Thanks.
Say that toward the end of the year, we'll also do another report back on the fellowship program. And next up, we're going to have Ashley talk about the weekly HackNights that we've had here at Open Plans, and kind of the direction and the future.
So my name is Ashley Williams. I'm a software developer, and I work nearly full-time as a volunteer with Noel for the Code for America Brigade, which is basically the volunteer organization portion of Code for America in New York City, and that's what we are calling BetaNYC. And so what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is kind of two things. One is something very practical, which is what we call our BetaNYC HackNights. And I am going to do my own slides, because that's easier. All right, so my basic message to you, if you get anything out of me talking for the next 10 minutes, is please come work with us on Wednesday nights. And I have a lot more about why you should. But basically the idea is that we host an open hack night. And hack can mean whatever you want it to. It could be about talking about policy. It could be creating some software. It could be about learning something about software development that you didn't know before. I am a web development teacher in the city, and I regularly invite all of my students to come. So if you're just learning, if you're interested, if you project, if you don't, if you want someone to talk to you about something interesting on Wednesday night, this is the forum for you. And if you're here, you're probably a great candidate. But what I'm going to talk to you next is kind of what our theory is behind HackNights and the kind of ideology we want to be seeing as we move forward, and the community of developers in particular that we want to develop in the city. And so the first thing I want to talk about is hackathons. So I very specifically have this feeling that hackathons don't work. And people throw hackathons, and a lot of great things can come from hackathons. But when I'm talking about sustainable, maintainable software that works for civic technology, this is not a model that is going to work out. We've seen a bunch of times that this doesn't work. It's because the people disappear, they're incentivized by money, and they privatize. There's a lot of different reasons. All right, so what we're trying to do with BetaNYC is we're looking to harness that, like, let's make something awesome spirit, all right, of hackathons, but without losing the spirit of civic engagement. And let me talk a little bit about exactly what I mean by that. All right, so when Noel and I talk often, we talk about this whole code is law, law is code, this back and forth. And the idea is that cities are run based on laws. All right, but as we move into a more technical age, the software that our cities run on function a lot like laws. The things that we can access, how efficiently we can access them, all of these things are determined by the software that we use, whether it be the government software or some proprietary software that's also able to access that data. And in that sense, we need to treat these the same way. And what is the right way to treat them? When we think about civically engaging in these types of things, what we need to do is we need to treat them like dialogue, all right? And software is one of these things that we have a lot of trouble treating like dialogue right now. This is just not what's happening. People are not thinking about interrogating software the way they think about interrogating law. And these hack nights are where we want to do this. So hackathons, all right, don't have necessarily the structure to support these things. And these are these four freedoms: connection, education, collaboration, and innovation. These are the things that we look to perpetuate on a weekly basis at our hack nights. These are the things that we want you to feel like you've actively accomplished. We want you to show up and think, I've learned something, I've found someone new who's going to help me out, I've made some new friends, and I've thought about a new idea that I want to pursue. And this is the kind of community that we're trying to develop. Hackathons are not terribly good at this. All right, hackathons are, number one, they're incentivized on competition. All right, also, people generally show up to hackathons and they're like, I have a startup. And you're like, oh? Yeah, okay. And the idea is that they have this idea and they're like, yeah, I have a startup. I'm going to keep all my code secret. No one else has ever thought of this idea before. And I'm not going to share it, which means I'm not going to talk to you about it because, God forbid, you're going to take my idea. All right? And I mean, what that leads to is a lot of Red Bulls at 3 a.m. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has been there, but I've been there. But it leads to fear. And fear is like the #1 thing that shuts down dialogue. And that's what we want to avoid. And that's what we're looking to do. So again, when we think about our hack nights, we want to be thinking about creating a community that has this technical infrastructure that is sustained, that is productive, and that promotes technical literacy. And when I say that, I mean you don't need to be a software developer to show up at these hack nights and be a productive part of the community. What we're also looking to do is evangelize understanding of software. And so you can show up and somebody who has a great idea, who's building something, you can be like, how are you building that? All right? And having that conversation, hearing those words, like, what on earth is Django? I mean, if you hear it a number of times, maybe you'll figure it out. Like, having the conversations that include these words are what's going to keep the community abreast of what's going on. And because software is so important to your civic engagement, it's something that you need to know. So just showing up, having a beer, and talking to somebody who's building software is going to improve civic engagement for everyone. So again, the takeaway here is we need to treat dialogue as software, and hackathons are kind of a terrible place to do that. And so where are you going to do that in the city? And what we're saying is, Code for America Brigade wants you to come every Wednesday night and participate in the dialogue. So that means software, what software you want to make, what software should be made, how you should make it. It can be on any sort of scope or scale like that. All right, so something here just for the developers in the community. When we're talking about what we're doing at our Hack Nights, I'd really like to evangelize open source. And this is a model that we're really looking to see. And open source models, I'll say open source community models here. Open source models generally work because these are software developer tools that people use all the time. So Rails is a particular example. Say you use Rails, you're making a web app with Rails, and you're using it and you run into a bug. It's like, oh shoot, something's broken. At that point, you're like, I'm a developer, I need this to work because I'm using it, I'm going to fix it. And then I'm going to contribute this back to the community so everyone else has this bug fixed. What we're looking to do, especially with the Code for America Brigade, is shift the idea of this open source model of just software tools into civically minded civic tools to allow people to say access data. Say you see a problem in your city, then you're like, oh, I use this city and I want it to work, and I want it to work for everybody else. All right, and contributing to the community in that way. And so we have a Git repository for BetaNYC. If you have a project, we really encourage you to get it up on our repository and structure it in a way so that people can feel like they can contribute. And we're looking to do a lot of education on what it means to make your project open source. There's a lot of scaffolding that goes into making that successful, but that's something that we feel really committed to. So in addition, what can we offer you if you want to come and add to this dialogue? Because this dialogue will be terrible if you're not part of it. All right, we're going to do teach-ins. We're looking to have mentorships, and we just have resources. We have people in the city who have worked in a lot of different organizations that have a lot of really great knowledge. So we want to be able to teach you how to participate, and we want to help you along the way. So coming here, even if you feel like you don't have anything, we have things to offer you. And if you are willing and have the effort to participate in this community, we would like to scaffold that experience. So to that end, you guys should be looking for Code for America as a national organization. It's going to be running a campaign called the Campaign for Social Coding, where we're going to be looking at straight Git analytics to see who is contributing the most amount of code, who's contributing the most useful code, how many repositories have we been able to open up, and how many things have we been able to, say, fork and clone to different cities. So this is something that you guys should be really looking forward to. And we're going to really be pushing that on our Wednesday nights. But then again, if everything I've just said is potentially gone over your head, just come work with us on Wednesday nights. We'd be happy to have you. Thanks.
And to that extent, next Wednesday, May 8th, we're going to have a very special presentation from the city. The DeWitt, the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, the city's IT department, is going to have a special dialogue about some things that are coming out. You will have to attend to hear more about it, but more or less imagine
it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's actually, we're going to help them prototype the next step.
You just told them.
We're going to help them prototype the next step of the city's kind of data infrastructure. And so if you are using municipal data from the data mined, if you are incorporating them into your applications, come next Wednesday, it's going to be a tangible hack night. Where the city is going to demo some cool objects that will hopefully you can. It's a prototype.
Let's stop teasing them and just see if they have questions.
It's a prototype, and I'll leave it at that.
What's it gonna be?
Huh?
What's it gonna be?
That's the thing he's dancing around.
Yeah, it's a thing that I'm dancing around. It's a, it's a prototype of data. It's taking it to the next level.
The data is big.
What I want to do is I want to do questions with each individual speakers at the very end. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And so I want to get Veronica to come up. Veronica has been doing a lot of the backbreaking work for BigApps. How many of you know what New York City BigApps is all about? Raise your hand.
Just had a quick question. Is that next week? Is that through BetaNYC?
Yeah. So if you want to come and attend, you got to come to the next Wednesday's meetup. It's going to be in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. Yeah, it's really easy for those of you who are on the G train, or if you can get to downtown Brooklyn. At Blue Ridge Foundation.
Is the wait stop?
It's like centrally located to downtown Brooklyn. So you can find out all that information on meetup.com/BetaNYC. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Veronica, who's been doing a lot of backbreaking work around the NYC BigApps, who will give you another opportunity for you to plug into the work that we're doing at Code for America.
So I have actually been a volunteer with Code for America since February of 2012. So almost a year and a half, I think. And I'm not a developer, I'm not a designer. I have very little technical background at all. I'm kind of like a wannabe geek. But I heard about Code for America and just got I fell in love with it because it's basically the only thing that I've ever come across that will solve so many different problems in so many different communities with one initiative, and that's civic technology. And so I wanted to do whatever it was I could do to be involved with it, and I was just like, well, I'm not a developer, I can't build cool stuff, and that kind of sucks. So what I've been doing as a volunteer is helping to engage different communities, helping to provide educational opportunities for people who want to get involved, and basically just bringing people together, whether it be people in the tech startup space to teach them about what civic technology is, or just people like me who are random citizens that would have no idea what a civic application was if it wasn't for my exposure to it. So I recently moved to New York from Chicago, and I met Noel at a civic type event, and through my affiliation with Code for America, Noel recommended me to join the team for NYC BigApps, which is, I believe it's the largest and oldest civic software competition in the world. Started in 2009 by the NYC EDC. And this year, the team that's running it, Collab Finder is one of the companies with the EDC that's working with it. And what we're doing is trying to provide a lot more resources for the competition, because as Ashley was saying, hackathons don't work. And I hate saying that out loud because I've been organizing hackathons for fun for years. And I always try to make it for like a social cause or trying to benefit somebody in some way, but she's right. Sustainability is almost non-existent with those types of things unless there are more resources after the fact, which is rare. So the reason why I really love what BigApps is doing this year is because they've created a kind of a platform where teams that are participating will have resources that will help them to create a civic app and possibly make that into a sustainable business afterwards, which is brilliant because we need these. Citizens in general, our city, we need civic applications for all different types of things, not just government-related stuff. And every time somebody does a civic software challenge, those things drop off. So it's like, well, what are we doing? So with BigApps, what I'm doing is helping to run all of the events, and we are having hackathons. The purpose of the hackathon is not to create the app all in one time frame. It's to encourage the teams to actually start developing or continue to develop their app and basically utilize the resources that we provide to them. So we have expert advisors in different areas revolving around the city's big issues to basically give you feedback on your app. What can you do to make it better? We have technical advisors, design advisors, industry experts that are there to help you on a regular basis. So the hackathons, and they also give you money if you win at the hackathons. But what I'm, I think, talking about is opportunities for you guys to get involved in civic technology through BigApps. If you are not a developer or designer and you still want to be involved with civic technology like myself, there are lots of volunteer opportunities. I definitely need help with events, like event staff stuff. So if any of you are interested in being a part of it, just to even get an introduction to what it's like, talk to me. We have a hackathon this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We have meetups. We have 2 more hackathons after that. And even after the fact, I want to create a lot of opportunities for civic app development through Code for America as well, which I will also continue to need volunteers for. Volunteering is not only your way of helping your community, but it's incredibly educational. I've met amazing people over the last year and a half that are really good friends of mine now. I'm learning about data, which I could have cared less about before. I did not even know what open government data was. And I'm not political, and I try to stay away from government stuff as much as I can, but the more I get involved in this, the more interesting it becomes to me. And the more I want to do it, the more I want to help people. So it's an amazing opportunity if you're interested in volunteering for it. Am I missing anything? No. Okay, so I'll be around if you guys have any questions about it. Come talk to me. And thank you.
Great. So the only way that you can get one of these strap jackets is that you pretty much have to volunteer a lot. But they are available. Huh?
I just said cheers to volunteering.
Cheers to volunteering. So a lot of the work that this community does, it has been done through volunteer work. I'm fortunate enough to be able to organize and help organize that volunteer work, but we're going to be continued to be run by volunteers. Veronica and Ashley really have stepped up to the plate over the last few months to really help spearhead opportunities for this community, which is very, very helpful to me, and I couldn't thank them more. And so I'm really looking forward to how you can help us build a better New York. Any of the feedback that you want to give of how this brigade program grows, operates, matures, we'd like to hear it. We're here to help organize and facilitate your problems and solve them. And with that, we can probably turn off this microphone and videotape so that we can answer questions off the record.